Okay, so good evening, everyone. Welcome you to this next episode of Ask the Monk Show. Right. So just a quick heads up about the show, and then I'll introduce you about the event, and then I'll introduce you the today's monk, the guest speaker, which we have Savita here, right, and then we'll get going into the event, right. So, Ask the Monk Show is nothing but started towards helping recruiters getting insights from TA leaders. We have done our first series focused towards technology, wherein we ran 6 events which were focused towards understanding technologies like DevOps, data science, backend. We had a lot of tech leaders who came in and spoke about the tech side of things to help the recruiting community. Now we have the next series which is focused towards the recruiting stories, wherein we learn from TA leaders from their journey and try to understand how they have gone about solving TA problems, recruiting challenges. Today we have Savita, who is a veteran and industry thought leader. I believe most of you would know Savita, would have seen her on LinkedIn and maybe attended a lot of events which she's taken part as a speaker, as a guest speaker. Right? So Savita comes with a background of more than like close to 15 years of experience in recruitment, wherein she has worked with companies like Yahoo, IBM, Oracle, and currently she is working with Thoughtworks for last 7+ years. So, and she's heading the TA at Thoughtworks India. I welcome Savita for this event. Savita, welcome you to this event.
Thank you, Ashfaq. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me to this show. I've heard quite a lot about the Recruiting Monks, the platform, as well as about the shows what you have, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here. And good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to all the participants as well.
Yeah, thank you, Savita. Cool. So now today's topic which we have is how do we build and scale in-house TA teams?
Yeah.
And the guest speaker Savita is the right person to be speaking on this because Thoughtworks as a company is pretty huge. Most of you would know Thoughtworks, and they hardly have any agency dependency, meaning they've built in-house TA teams and they operate that way. And in last few years, they're currently scaling massively. I think from last year, they've been scaling massively. So how to build and scale in-house TA teams when your engineering demands, when your tech demands are growing so crazily, and today we know the kind of demands which are out there. How do we scale the in-house TA teams? I think that's the topic, and Savita will be the right person to discuss this because Thoughtworks as a company doesn't depend much on the agencies, right? So before we get into it, I would like to start with one simple question more around Thoughtworks. If Savita can help us understand a little bit about Thoughtworks, when was it established in India, and what was the current size of Thoughtworks, and when did you join, and what was the size?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. That's a great question. So Thoughtworks is a global tech consultancy company that integrates strategy, design, and engineering to drive digital innovations for a client. We are a services company, but we do niche IT custom software development for our clients. We work in services, we work in digital transformation, in cloud, platforms, data, AI, and customer experience. So Thoughtworks is a pretty old company. We are about more than 26 years old. It was first set up in Chicago, and then it was a proprietary company for a very long time. And then it was sold to Apex Partners, who was a PE firm in 2016. And thereafter, we just went public. We are listed on NASDAQ about 6 months ago. So it's been a great journey so far. We have about 10,000 plus people in 17 different countries. And in India, we set up our first office in 2001 in Bangalore. And from then on, we have grown. We are in 7 different locations. We are about 4,000 plus people now. And a lot of offshore, onshore delivery work happens out of the India offices. So what ThoughtWorks does is, since when I say custom IT software development, we look at the client's business problems and then we propose a technology solution to it, and we execute it end to end, right from the discovery of the problem to giving the solution to the problem, building it out, and then handing it over to a customer. So since this is all, so the kind of people what we hire are folks who fit into a typically into a product development setup. Although our business model is services, and we work with the clients across different continents, North America, APAC region, SCA region, Australia, and we also have clients in India market as well. We operate in areas of BFSI, retail, healthcare domain, some of the most common domains that we work in. So I joined ThoughtWorks exactly 7 years ago. I complete 7 years in ThoughtWorks end of March. And so it's been a great, wonderful journey for me. So when I joined ThoughtWorks in India, we were just about 600 or 600 plus people, and we were in 5 different locations spread across India. And the goal what I was brought in was just to scale recruiting, because ThoughtWorks was on the cusp of growth, and we wanted to grow bigger in India, and they wanted somebody to lead and anchor it. We had a small team of about 12 to 13 recruiters, and we wished to use agencies. There was everything, all different sources of hiring. So when I came in, that was the goal for what I was hired for, like I said. And from then on, it's been a great journey of transformation, right from setting up a good, dynamic, vibrant set of team, having a different structure that aligns with the organizational goals, and and establishing and bringing in these talented recruiters and building this. Currently, we are about 80 plus people in the team with a structure, with a very optimized structure in place as well. And I'll be happy to talk a little more on that. So that's where we are. We are about 4,000 plus people in India and growing.
Amazing, amazing. So you said when you had joined, it was like around 600 employees, right? Like 7 years back.
Yeah.
7 years, you've grown to 4,000 plus
Yeah.
the size of the company, right?
Yes.
Now, as a company, when you came in, it was 600 employees. So ThoughtWorks was having the strategy of not going through external vendors, or you came in and brought this up. How is it? How did you go about setting it up and not having much of external dependencies?
Yeah. So we did have a few agencies to begin with. When I came in, there were some of them legacy ones who were working. There's nothing wrong about using agencies, but you need to know where to use them. Like, for example, if you're a startup, or if you have a very small company with less than 50 people with one recruiter, then maybe it makes sense, because you also need the agency to go out and spread the word about your company, and you want people to, it'll be a good branding for you. But then in a scale up or a larger company, in-house recruiting team works better, and have seen the benefits of it long time. I'm a very strong believer in having an in-house robust in-house recruiting team, right from the days when I was in Oracle. Right from the 2002 to 2003, Oracle was one of the earliest companies that had an in-house recruitment team, and I've seen the benefits of it. I've seen how it has grown, and all the good things that it brought about, not just for the organization. Of course, cost is one factor, but that's a very one-dimension way of looking at it. But also, a lot of value add for the recruiters. So there are 2-3 things that stand out, whether it depend, irrespective of which company you do it. One is that the recruiters for themselves, right? There's a lot of growth and understanding. One is because they're no longer paper pushers. They're not just pushing one CV from one inbox to another and doing a messenger role. So they have a opportunity to become talent advisors, get to understand their domain well, and build and gain expertise in the domain of recruiting. Then second thing is, who is a better person to sell your company or your job than a person who is already in the company. So the recruiter knows the culture of the company, the career path, what happens when people join. So selling of the jobs and answering the questions what candidates have, handling those objections comes more naturally, and it is more, there's more truth to what they're going to speak about. They're not simply, selling the job or selling the requirement to fill a Java. For example, when a Java rec or something, right? So they'll tell you the holistically what is in it. And secondly, the recruiters also are in closer sync with the hiring teams and the hiring managers. They know the business well. They know which direction the business is going, and they know who will be the right fit for that particular group, for that particular organization. And because they work closely with the hiring managers, then this whole feedback mechanism, closing the loop, and getting people on board gets easier. And this also builds a much more closer relationship with the candidate, and also the candidate experience. Like over the years, we have seen how important it is to give candidates a good experience, irrespective of the outcome of the interview, irrespective of whether the candidate joins you or does not join you. There's always a relationship that built that helps you in the future. And this candidate, even if the person they don't join you, they'll go back, they'll go out and talk nice about good things about your company, about the good experience they had, and and that spreads a good word of mouth. So this helps in building the brand. And often what we have seen, at least in all my years in Oracle, or for that matter, even in Yahoo when I went in, and even in IBM labs when I was leading it, we hardly had any vendors there, although the consulting groups used to use a lot of vendors. So what I've seen is, because of the relationship you build with your candidate, these last minute offer declines, and people not showing up on the day of joining, almost becomes nil. Like if I look back in the last couple of years, probably I would have had maybe one or two people who didn't show up on the day of joining. Yes, I'm talking of the lateral candidates. We get to know early in the process when the candidates are more candid. They tell if they're interviewing with other companies or they're getting any offers, and that whole relationship management becomes very good. So that kind of helps. So, and when you're scaling up, of course, the cost also matters. And if you're using more vendors extensively, the same candidates is presented to 100 other companies, right? And then it almost becomes like a bidding war. And then the candidate will go, they'll have no compelling reason to come to your company versus someone else who's paying them 1 lakh more or paying them some extra equity. So keeping all this in mind, I've seen it really work well. But of course, for that, you need a good system, you need good recruiters, you have to do a lot of heavy lifting until this whole thing settles and you get a team in place. But it's worth doing it because the benefits are really very good.
Amazing. So you made a right points in terms of it helps you in branding in a long term, right? So that's what I think has helped you and you have achieved it. And two, the right point is they're not resume pushers anymore, right? They're more advisors, right? That should make sense how to build with the future in focus, so that you're building more towards the brand and building it for the future, right? But what if the business comes and tells you all of a sudden we've got 2 new accounts, right? To build maybe quickly, maybe another 200 engineering teams in maybe 1 quarter or maybe next 6 months, right? So there, do you think it's better to lean towards agencies, or how do you manage to quickly scale the TA team, because it is a little challenging, right? So what would you say there?
Yeah, so this is a common problem. What happens, and one of the in my experience of 2 decades, what I've seen is, it is because the recruitment team and the business teams or the stakeholders who you work with, who are giving you these numbers, there's a lot of disconnect between them. The recruitment team is always looked at as a team where they have to just take orders. Somebody sends you 1 mail and says, I need these X people, and you go up, scramble all over the place and get it. But I think as leaders in talent acquisition teams, if you're a manager or a leader, it's very important for you to have your ear to the ground and know what is going on. And if your planning is good, if you know that in for example, if you're a services company, you will at least have a view of what the demand pipeline is going to be. What are the different accounts? I mean, in larger companies, you can work more closely with maybe the resource deployment managers or the people who look after the resources. In smaller companies and scale-ups, you have different teams and the operations teams who you have to have a very close rapport to understand what is the pipeline looking like. And then build that into your plan. Like, hiring is not a magic. It won't happen overnight. And the more better you are in planning and forecasting, the better it is for you. Because even if you go and get another 10 agencies empaneled, hiring 200 people in 1 month and 2 months is not going to happen, because you have a notice period, you have offer declines, you have so many, the dynamics, it's very complicated, this whole recruitment, hiring people, especially in a country like India. So the closer they are to the business, the how better they understand it, and a tighter planning helps. And I think that has helped really very well for me, at least in ThoughtWorks for the last 3 years. We work very closely with the business. We do a monthly iteration plan. We look at any accounts that have a probability or 40%, even if it's sitting at a probability of 40% right now, and the deals are not yet signed, we take those numbers into account and say that, okay, in signed accounts are so much, I need maybe 200 people, but then the pipeline says I might need another 150 people 3 months down the road. So you build it into your plan itself, right? And then you also know that maybe 50% of those 40 probability of 40% folks may not come through, or it may take a longer time. But then the whole cycle, the whole pressure comes down because you've built it, and then you scale your engine. And scaling engine, you are in recruiting for a long time, you know how hard it is. You suddenly cannot go from making 50 offers to 100 offers in 1 month. And the engine has to crank up and it has to scale, and we have to build it. And then there are other dynamics what you have to think about, maybe like in ThoughtWorks, diversity and hiring women, hiring underrepresented minorities is a very big organizational goal. We have goals of giving good candidate experience. We have goals of bringing a good source mix, with referrals, with inbounds and outbounds. So every organization will have its own other things built on top of just mere numbers. So all that planning piece will help. Then the second important thing is that how do you have a team structure that will align to your business goals? Like 5 years ago, I realized that there was a huge need for hiring senior folks, people with, say, at a lead level or an architect. And we used to hire before 2015, there were about 1 or 2 in a year. And then it moved to hiring 50 or 60 people a year. So how do you scale that when the team does not have that kind of experience? So I set up a specific team which looked at only senior tech hiring. We hired recruiters from out who had that experience, and and built that capability within the team to hire and we scaled that over the past 2 years, where we used to hire senior people in leadership roles, senior people in tech roles, tech leadership roles, and that went well. And after some time, we saw that our campus numbers were going high, so we said, let's keep some campus out of this, out of the lateral hiring. So you keep yourself closer to how your organization is growing. And every year, at least in my experience and what I follow is after October of every year, because our plans are Jan to December, we follow the calendar year. So October to December just goes in, making changes in the team structure to align, keeping in mind what are your business goals for next year. That when an organization starts growing, there'll be so many things. Like we did a very big reorg a year ago, and we hardly had few business units. Now we have about 15 of them. Then you need the structures to support hiring for all of them. Then as the team grew, I also set up a different recruitment operations team, because we wanted to take away the admin work what recruiters used to do, so that they can get focus on, only on sourcing and closing their numbers, and the other parameters what they have to look at. So we have a full-fledged recruitment operations team. And when the offer numbers had to go higher, I last year introduced the ticketing system for RecOps, for the recruitment operations. So the SLAs are measured. Once the candidate is identified, sending out offer becomes easy. So you put those processes in place. And we also got in a lot of people to do scheduling, so that, we wanted recruiters to spend more time with candidates. That was the goal. And took away all the other tasks which would eat up more of their bandwidth and time. So having a proper structure and aligning it and making those small little changes and tweaks in the system every year helps. So if I have to sum it up, then people, process, technology are the 3 things to be kept in mind when you want to scale, or when you also want to have an in-house recruitment team. And when I say technology, it's about how do you experiment with new platforms, get new tools. So I think in the last 4 or 5 years, anyone who builds a new AI or a ML platform and says, please try it out. We'll give you a free trial. I think I've tried it out. I've not stopped myself or stopped my team from doing anything. We've also had, depending on your budget, you can buy whatever permits. Sometimes, not all organizations can afford all the fancy tools, but then there are plenty of free tools available, which will build some efficiency in the system for the recruiters. So and moving on to 100% online system, like try as much as possible to get away from using only Excel and Google Sheets. That's really very painful and doesn't give you any good data. In a way, I feel we were lucky because we have Greenhouse as our ATS what we use, and it's one of the best ATSs I've worked with. It has an ability to give good reports. You get right from your conversion reports per candidate, per recruiter, and source mix. It's really good. And for any TA leader or a manager, it makes it very easy to figure out where are things not going well, what interventions need to be done, and at what level it has to happen. 100% online process. So all that, in terms of technology and processes definitely helps. And investing in people, with this team in place, we have a proper learning system in place where onboarding plan in place where the first 1 month, 4 weeks, people, we have come up with it in a sense. It's not just learning about the rec what you're going to work on, but the entire systems. How do you sell? We make them shadow the calls of the other recruiters. We do reverse shadowing. We give feedback, and then ramp them up. Then we do paired sourcing. We sit together and together we run sprints for sourcing, where the entire team gets together, looks at the job descriptions and sources people and puts it in a folder so that the recruiter who owns the rec will then take it forward. Like I said, it's a lot of heavy lifting to do, and but that pays off in the long run.
Yeah, amazing. So, couple of points which is like very important what you mentioned. One is majority of the recruiters spend a lot of time in operational activities.
Yes.
You mentioned you've taken that away by having a specific ops team. So that itself gives the recruiter more time to invest maybe in sourcing or maybe branding or candidate engagement or to have a very candidate experience. I think that's one amazing thing for people who are budding TAs
and less mistakes.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. But because especially if you have a system which is not completely automated, then there are a lot of mistakes happen. Then they're not, better. It's good to have a separate set of people whose only job is to make those offers and make sure everything is in ship shape as far as the paperwork is concerned, and take that load away from your recruiters.
True. Because that's the majority of the time where recruiters spend their time and they're annoyed with it, actually.
I know, yeah.
They don't like all these juggling around with multiple Excel sheets and juggling around with the reports every Friday or maybe on a month end.
Google Sheets.
Yeah.
So, like I keep joking that most of the recruiters become Excel jockeys, and they really are not recruiters at all, right? I mean, you just become good in your Excel skills and sending away. And then, as leaders, as managers who are there in the system, also having this good relationship with the stakeholders, setting the boundaries, telling them what can be done, and having a uniform way of reports also really helps. I think a lot of onus also lies on the managers and the leads in the system to set up that system in place, and also have that relationship with the stakeholders, so that sometimes I feel for hiring managers it's more of a vanity metrics, like, oh, I interviewed 20 people, I rejected all 20, give me another 20 CVs. So how do you eliminate all that, right? So set those ground rules in place, rules of engagement in place, those things, and that has to be done by the lead and the managers in the team, and let the recruiters peacefully, source and close their candidates.
So a couple of things. One is, can you maybe highlight on what is paired sourcing, right? I think some of you might know it, some of you may not know it. So I think that will help folks to understand what do you mean by paired sourcing.
Yeah, so in the good old days, I should say, when we used to be in office, it was nice. We used to all get into a room and do it, but now we do it on Zoom. If you have a LinkedIn recruiter license, it helps because you can create those projects there. and you open up a job description, which is what you want to work on, and you get 3 or 4 people in the team to come together and source for that at the same time, and then put those CVs in the together. So at the end of 1 hour, the person who owns that requirement will get about 50 or 60 people to do their next level of outreaching to the candidates. And in the bargain, the other people, if they're not working on the track, will understand a little more. They'll get it's a new learning for them, and people will learn from each other on the different optimized way of sourcing. Because not everybody may be familiar with using different type of Boolean strings or other ways of sourcing. So this learning by osmosis, right, by watching and seeing what others are doing, helps a lot. And then you save all those strings in a place so that you use the same thing for some other requirement, changing a few of the keywords. So that is what I meant when I said paid sourcing. Either you do it with a person who's a senior seasoned recruiter, with somebody who's just joined your team so that they learn, or if you want to do sprints, you can bring more people together and do it at once. So usually at the end of 1 hour of sprint, you'll end up having about 40-50 resumes. So in ThoughtWorks, we also have a global sourcing team that helps in sourcing for most of the other regions. But in India, we take some help from them of late. But otherwise, this is the process what they followed. I actually learned the best practice from them. They do a lot of sprints in sourcing, and we kind of implemented it in our team, and it has really helped us.
Okay, amazing. So I think this is something which would help a lot of teams who are building, right?
Yeah.
Cross learn, right?
You cross learn, and we know that recruiting is a very individual contributor kind of a role. I know I have to fill in my 3 numbers, I have to fill in my 4 numbers, but while that healthy competition has to be there, but I think a collaborative way of working is very important in the long run, both for learning and both for the growth of the team, and also just getting the efficiencies up.
True. So no, what you mentioned is really right. But the recruiter's role is individual contributor role. Like you mentioned, even you have to fill some numbers, right?
Yeah, you have to build your numbers, but at the same time, you're getting help from your colleagues, you're getting help from them, you're learning the best practices. And today there are so many different tools, it's impossible to keep pace with it. So if you work together, the collaboration always helps.
True. So yeah, being a TA head, when you said even you have your numbers 3-4 to fill it, right? I think that's a new thing for a lot many people.
No, sorry. I don't fill in numbers now. I'm saying every person has to fill in the numbers. Yeah.
But I have seen that you interview even the first round with the recruiters sometimes. I think this was, I had applied ThoughtWorks in 2016.
Okay.
That was the first time I applied, and then I had a call with you.
Is it? Okay. I don't remember it. I hope you had a good experience.
Yeah, it is. So even if you go check our LinkedIn conversation, our first chat was that.
Okay.
16, I had pinged you. And then I got an opportunity with ANSI to head the strategy, and this was a recruiting role. So I picked that up, and I just round up a discussion I had with you. Although it didn't proceed. Then I moved.
So these days, because we have more people in the team and we have leads, I have some really very excellent leads in the team who do the rounds up. But I do talk to every single person who we hire in the team.
Amazing.
I at least have a half an hour conversation with them.
Cool. So yeah, now you also mentioned one of the interesting things. I think generally that's something which most of the senior manager or TA heads needs to pick it up. That is about juggling around with technical tools. You mentioned, right?
Yeah.
Whenever there's a new tool in the market,
Yeah.
you're open to test it out and then figure out. You mentioned that interesting aspect. Now, when you do this, I know today there are a crazy number of tools, right? Every month there's a new tool in the market, right? So now, what is your way of benchmarking tools? Is there any strategy do you have towards benchmarking? Point 1. Point number 2, any recent tools which you feel is adding value, right? Maybe 1 or 2 tools if you could name.
Yeah. So, I mean, I agree with you. There are quite a lot of tools. The one important thing to do is a lot of tools are similar to each other. Not everything is unique. Okay. So it's important to have a conversation with those product teams to understand what is the value add and how is it going to help your organization. Sometimes some tools don't make sense, so you just leave it. But then if they usually help in the sourcing piece, and if they help you in getting better candidates and or just general tools which help you in better outreach, then it's good to do at least a 1 month. Just put a small team in place. What I usually do is I'll ask my team if anyone is interested to try it out, and then give them those, give them the license to try it out for a month, and then they come back and tell me. And they're hands-on recruiters, day in and day out, they're meeting candidates, so they come and they give a feedback, and that's how we take a decision. It's always a consensus-driven decision, because we want recruiters to be benefited from there. So some of the tools what I've used, of course, I was using Belong for a long time. It was a great tool. It was an AI ML tool. Then we discovered CutShort platform also, which has helped us quite a lot. It's a platform again, but that's quite smart and dynamic. And then I was using Param for some time. Now we had some other technical issues, but for which we could not implement it. But that itself was more of a candidate rediscovery platform, and now they are now they have made it into an ATS, which is quite good. So some of those are some of the tools that have really helped. Some of them may not make lot of sense. They may be all very similar, having the similar features, or they'll be very overpriced. So you just have to take a decision on that. And in the platforms, while we use HackerRank for our grad recruiting for assessments, HackerEarth has helped me a lot. I think we're one of the earliest users of HackerEarth. Almost 7 years ago itself, where it has helped us a lot in doing outreaches to candidates, conducting hackathons, using it for assessment. The first level assessments we've used pretty extensively, and it's a very good platform to reach out to your target segment. Okay. It also helps in hosting webinars. For example, not all organizations may have the ability to have their own YouTube channels and others. So if you want to host any webinars, using some of these platforms, they're pretty mature platforms. I mean, they've gone through the teething issues, but now they're in a position where they can customize things for you. So those have really helped, and using technology definitely helps.
Yeah, true, totally. So that's one interesting piece which you put out, right? You try and juggle a lot of tech.
Yes, we do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, now since you run the major recruiting piece through an in-house team, can you help us understand what is the hiring mix? When I say the hiring mix, I mean the outbound versus inbound, meaning the referrals. Yeah. And maybe job board versus LinkedIn. Can you understand some percentage at Thoughtworks? What is the mix?
Okay, so we see every whether it's an inbound, outbound, or referral, the three important channels. Of course, there'll be another small percentage in many companies for IJPs or conversions of contractors to full timers, etc. All these three channels, the main channels, have their own pros and cons, and it can, some of them work well for certain roles and certain grades, while some of them may not work. But in Thoughtworks, we follow a process of 30-30-30. That is 30% inbound, 30 outbound, and 30 referral. So we want recruiters to use all the channels that is given to them. And so when you say for grads as well, grads, the hiring usually happens on campus or it's an off campus. So we run those events, and we also have referrals, but we also do sourcing, because that has helped us, in bringing right set of candidates in the pipeline, rather than always look at grad hiring as a mass hiring event and bring in those 500-600 people and hire 50 people in the end. So that is a big change for us in the grad hiring piece. In the lateral hiring piece, we follow the 30-30 model, and we bring 30 inbound, 30 outbound, and 30 referrals. If you look at the last 1.5 years, our referrals have worked well for us. We are about 35% on that. And then we have about 25 to 28% outbounds, and the rest of them are inbounds. And when I say inbounds, these are job postings, what you do on LinkedIn. We do a lot of digital advertisements on LinkedIn. So all of them, those people apply to that, and it comes into our system. They come to our career portal and apply through all these various different channels where we do our advertisements. Like, for example, we have a jobs up on Glassdoor, so somebody applies through that. And so those are the inbounds. But of course, because it is inbounds, the quality will not be too great. People have to wait through a lot of CVs to just find one good person. But with outbound and referrals, conversions are far, far better. So we advocate the use of these two channels more than inbounds. But having said that, we do look at inbounds as well.
Okay, amazing, good. Now that's a pretty good number. What you mentioned in terms of
Yeah.
referrals, 35% is a very good
Yeah.
number.
Yes. We created a special role called programs manager in our team last year to look at all these different programs like referrals and diversity and others, because that unless you have somebody actually working on it, tracking it, and thinking about it day in and day out, it's very hard to move the needle on these kind of programs, because then it becomes everybody's problem and nobody owns it up. There's no accountability. So having a separate programs team and a programs manager looking after it has helped, because they were very relentless in their, they had a plan in place and they had a schedule in place. And every month on month, we did those campaigns, we did enhanced referral campaigns, ensure that, the next part, which most of the employees and organizations don't like, is they send the referral and we don't know what happens to it. So that feedback mechanism, making it much more tighter and a faster process, all that definitely helped us.
Now, since your percentage is fairly high in terms of referrals which you're getting, can you let us know maybe one or two tweaks which you did to get this going to hit this number of 35%, right? I'm sure this number would have been slightly smaller a few years back. Right?
Yeah.
What tweaks? Because now what generally companies do is they give away some kind of prize money, they give away some kind of goodies, right? If you like it's about encouraging employees.
Gamifying it. Yeah.
How do you, what are the tweaks you did, and now your numbers are fairly good in terms of referrals?
Yeah. So one of the biggest change what we got about is by using a tool for referring. We have a internal tool where people can go and find the requirements that are open and apply, and that goes directly onto the job in our ATS. Earlier, it used to be on emails, that was painful. There was one email ID and people used to send, and it used to get lost. So using the tool really helped in streamlining those processes, because once the CV goes to goes into the job, then it is it is easy for the recruiters. So the ground rule that was in the team is that you have to process your referral resumes first, as it should be a priority. So week on week, we used to pull out reports from the system to see how many referrals have come to which job and are they actioned or not within that SLAs of 4 or 5 days when we have to give the feedback. So that was tracked. Like I said, we had this programs team. We had one referral champion, a person in the team itself, a recruiter who wanted to do something more. So we gave that person that opportunity, who is to really track all this on a weekly basis. So the tracking and also helped in making sure that all the resumes are processed, feedback is given, and that encouraged people to also give you better quality CVs. And then do these communication, right? Send out all your mailers, make sure that you tell people what are the open recs, give more importance to the recs that are hard to fill, where you need people to refer. And we also did these sessions where when you even if you don't know the candidate really well, but if you give us a lead, we will follow up and see that if the person gets converted, then we'll give you the referral fee. So we did all that, and we did some enhanced referral bonus. We didn't give any fancy vacation and bikes and gamifying. We didn't have the budgets for it, although we would love to do it. But then we did the process itself was very efficient, and that helped us a lot. And we did week on week, month on month communication around that to get more candidates.
Okay.
Especially for people who just join your company in the first 3 months, we have seen that traditionally in the first 3 months people refer more when they join any new company.
Okay, that's I think a good catch. First 3 months people are
first 3 months everyone's higher spirits, and they'll also have friends telling them, okay, why don't you refer me? The moment you say I've joined a new company, that's a standard thing. Lot of friends say like, okay, you refer me to your company.
Yeah, well, even in a LinkedIn context, that's a brand.
Yes.
Some change your
I know.
reputation, and then
Exactly.
that's commenting. I think that's a good catch.
Yeah.
The first 3 months when someone has joined, you can weed out.
Yeah. And the tool is good. The tool also helps the people to put out that requirement on their social media channels, with just one click.
Is it an internal in-house tool?
Yes, it is not an internal tool. It's a commercially available tool. It's called Refer, but that was kind of customized for us because we wanted it integrated with Greenhouse, and that's why.
Okay, cool. Amazing.
And there are plenty of good tools available these days in referral space.
Okay. Okay, now since you've been planning hiring at a large scale at ThoughtWorks, right? One thing which I wanted to understand is what, according to you, is a good percentage of hire? For example, this year, right, or maybe a quarter, there's a X number needs to be higher, assuming it's 100, right? What number, if it is achieved, would you consider as a good number? 80%, 90%, or it has to be 100?
As a TA leader, I would say 100. Yeah, but then yeah, 85 to 90% is also good. And then you also ensure that you have to have a good pipeline for the next quarter. So yes, 85-90% is good. It depends on organization. Some of them in product organization, when the numbers are low, it's easier. If the numbers are very high, then even 80-90% is good.
Now, how do you set expectation with business, right? When you're sitting with the business, when there's a new account coming in, or when you're planning, generally you said the October, November, December is when the numbers are being charged out for the next year, right? So when you're setting the expectations, what is the process or the procedure you follow, or there is some sort of framework, or do you follow some kind of an MI tool, right? Market intelligence tools to figure out, okay, this is the numbers, right? Maybe there are some niche hiring which you want to do it, and then you want to understand the numbers and stuff. So how do you go about planning or setting the expectations with the business?
Yeah, we don't have any special MI tool, but we use LinkedIn Insights quite a lot. And then, of course, we do our own, we look through our own ATS. Our ATS is rich. It has a large number, almost from 8+ years data of people. That gives us a good understanding. And then, of course, all the other job portals. And when we get all the data together, collect all the data together to make the inferences. There's no one tool or a platform what we use. So just in terms of expectations, right? One thing what I also forgot to mention is that having a proper system in place for interviewing, the whole selection process, right? That was one thing what we fixed in the last 4-5 years. We made our whole selection process into a very attribute-based system, that is a competency-based system, and standardized a lot of these. Like, for example, we have a 5-stage interview process, irrespective of what role it is. It's not more than 5 stages. And then we have called out the attributes what are needed in the tech attributes for say for example a developer who's at a entry level developer versus a senior versus a lead. What should be there? And then did a lot of education with the hiring teams, and we do this tech readiness training program. We do interview readiness training program before people can take up interviews, to tell them that in tech 1, these are the 2-3 things what you need to talk about and ask. You don't ask other stuff, right? And so it is a very focused, objective way of evaluating a candidate, and helps in taking decisions when you want to take a decision about hiring for potential, or you say the person is 80% there, 20% have to learn. So that whole focused, objective way of interviewing is very important, and we spent a huge amount of time setting that right. That took a lot of time, I should say, and we started it in India, and then it was implemented globally and it became a huge program. We call our entire selection process as Joy of Interviewing. And because we want interviewing to be a joyous process for both the parties, whether it's a recruiter, for all the 3 parties, whether it's a recruiter or the candidate or the interviewer. And we want candidates to feel, respected for the time they're spending with you. Otherwise, interviews tend to become very random. There's a lot of bias that creeps in. And then you always want to ask, you should focus on what the candidate knows, focus on the strengths rather than just ask questions that the candidate maybe does not know. So that fixing helped, and that in terms of expectation setting, if you tie it back, the hiring teams know exactly what they have to ask, or rather, what they need to ask. So the expectation on being objective about interviews is set. And then we also, because we do in-house recruiting, we don't have this process of sending resumes to hiring manager for shortlisting, unless it's some super niche requirement, some one-off case. Is the recruiters who do the phone screening of candidates, and we put everyone for the next round of interview, whether it is a case study, whether it is a code pairing round, what we do for tech folks. Everyone goes through the next round of interview process. So this whole business of sending resumes is completely eliminated, and that saves us a lot of time. Yeah, and then we make them go through the interview process. If there's no clear consensus, then we do a huddle at the end of it to understand the pros and cons of the candidate. The recruiter drives it, and then arrives at a decision of a no or no go for the candidate.
Amazing. So you've worked a lot on the interview thing and also improving the candidate experience.
Yes, candidate experience, interviewing, and doing away with this whole system of sending resumes for shortlisting, because there's a lot of bias and subjectivity that creeps in depending on who the hiring manager is or who the hiring team is. So that is not there in Thoughtworks.
Okay, so then how do you manage good resumes, bad resumes?
The recruiter does the phone screen, and then we look at the conversions of recruiters. So the conversions are not good, then we know that the recruiter is not phone screening well. So there is a certain amount of risk the recruiter takes. If they're not 100% glow fit, then they're 80% good, 20% we have to figure out what are the what are the gaps. So a recruiter spends at least 25 minutes with every candidate before we pass them on for the next round of interview. 20 to 25 minutes at least for the tech rounds. It's not just a sanity check of what is your notice period and what is your compensation, but one level deeper. And then we also tell the candidate more in detail of what happens in each round and what they need to be prepared on. We have a whole list of reading material and documents what we send to candidates as a prep for the interviews. And after every round, we give feedback to the candidate and tell them that, you did this well, but maybe the next round, these things you have to be a little more, do well in these parts. So it's a pretty high touch process.
Okay, so now since you said, how do you measure the metrics for a recruiter, right? It's like the first round selects. Based on that, you measure whether the recruiter is having a good, deep conversation with the candidate and getting a hang of the candidate.
Yeah. No, we look at the conversion reports and see the conversion reports are from resume to offer, and the funnel will tell you what percentage went to the next round. So of course the end goal is again hires and offers. So that number is already there for every recruiter, how many hires they have to bring every quarter. And then the other parameters, like I said, the source mix matters. We want everyone to use the 30-30-30 source mix and also focus more on outbounds. That is the goal. And also on the women and diversity. So how many women are you bringing into your pipeline and how many are you bringing in? Every recruiter has a goal for that. So these are 3-4 parameters, and then the candidate experience as well, because candidates get a link to fill up the feedback, and candidate experience is an overall for the team. It's not individual for a recruiter.
Okay, amazing, cool. Okay, cool. So that was a nice heads up. Now that brings me to the last bunch of questions, right? So now the question is so you did mention it is a 60 plus TA size is what you're managing at Thoughtworks, right? 80, okay, amazing, right? So now everyone knows the kind of recruiters Thoughtworks has, right? Actually, at least the in team, right? I'm not sure about others, right? Because we have seen how the TA team is in India, and that's pretty amazing. And we were discussing before start of this event how your recruiters are being poached by a lot of companies. So now, what is this mantra of building amazing tech recruiters, wherein you've always been doing at Thoughtworks, right? You did mention paid sourcing is one of them, wherein they come, they learn from their peers who've been doing it. That's one. And then you also run events like a Recruited. And what else do you do to ensure that culture is maintained? Because many companies, it's all about metrics in terms of kitne resume hai, kitne offer hai, right? And that's what it is, right? So how do you build this as a culture, and how are you shaping this up?
Yeah, it's a great question. Like I said, it's not just the end result of numbers that we look for. We also look a lot into the other 3-4 parameters, what matters to us, which as organizational goals, we have these. And it's not just important that you bring your 8 or 10 or 11 numbers every quarter, but these other things are the matters. We have a recruiter expectation document where all this is clearly called out and conveyed to the recruiter when they join us. And like I said, we have a 4-week onboarding, process. And that 4 weeks, at least 4 to 6 weeks, we really don't expect recruiters to make offers. We're not saying that I hire you today, tomorrow morning you bring me an offer, or tomorrow morning you fill your pipeline with 100 candidates. We give that space to the recruiters to learn. And that is part of ThoughtWorks culture, not just culture within the recruitment team, and that has come to us as well. As a company, we believe a lot in learning and development, and having this culture of cultivation in the team. It's not important just only if you succeed, but your team also has to succeed. So that's the kind of culture which is within ThoughtWorks itself, and that has also percolated to us. And the focus on learning is very high. We do these knowledge cafe sessions once in 1 or 2 months, where the recruiters get together and give a demo of the new things they learned, or sourcing from Instagram or some new age channels that are there available in the market. And this, when we and during the onboarding process, like I said, we do shadowing and reverse shadowing for recruiters. We do paid sourcing. We run these sprints so that the hands-on activities is learned, so the recruiters learn. We ensure that they attend all the meetings with the cadence calls and others with all the hiring teams, so that they understand the business perspective as well. Their job is not just to churn the numbers. And every day, on a daily basis, we do our stand-ups, where every team does their own stand-ups to figure out where they are and what each team is doing. It's a more agile way of working. So all those best practices helps in fostering this kind of a culture within the team of learning. There's a lot of focus on learning, and as a part of your performance, or rather your goal setting for the year, putting your learning plan together is very important. And of late, in the last 6-7 months, ThoughtWorks has this tie-up with Udemy, and we can do any course on that. That's been a big blessing for us. So we promote a lot of self-learning on the recruiters. We tell people to go and pick up topics and do their own learning as well.
Yeah, I think you have certain budget also for a recruiter wherein they can buy anything, or maybe
but it's a very small budget. But with Udemy, it's helped because Udemy has a whole host of courses. So someone might not be very good in negotiating. They can just go and attend 1 or 2 of those courses on Udemy and learn some tips. Because it's impossible to do too much of training, so a lot of self-learning is promoted. But on your actual job-related work, what is there, that we focus a lot in terms of the training.
So thanks a lot, Savita, for tuning in and sharing your thoughts, right? And benefit a lot of recruiters who are here, and also recruiters who will tune in later.
Thank you, Ashwak. Thanks for inviting me. It was wonderful talking to the recruiting community. I always look forward to connecting and learning from them as well.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks, Savita. Thanks for your time. Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks a lot. Bye, everyone. Thank you.